If I say, what is the opposite of a cat? What comes to mind? You can say the question makes no sense, but it's not unlikely that your first thoughts would be something like a dog or a mouse or a goldfish, maybe the absence of a cat if you're autistic, or maybe you think this question is a waste of time and I'm an idiot. If I say, let's keep on going with this, what is the opposite of a shoe? It's not weird if your first thought is a hat, a glove, the absence of a shoe, a bare foot, or again, I'm an idiot for asking a silly question that makes no sense. Now, if I say deadbeat mother, and I ask you to tell me what you think its opposite is, then good mother or deadbeat father would probably come to mind. Mother and father are gendered roles, and you can do a good job or a bad job at either, and both are seen as foundational. The concept of a deadbeat mother, it would not be framed as sexist or misogynistic even to a feminist. But if I say, what is the opposite of man up? And you know that the term woman up doesn't exist in our vocabulary, and you're compelled to say the opposite of man up is stop acting like a woman or a child, then the absence of the term woman up and the application of the term man up being appropriate to apply to a man and a woman, where telling a man or a woman to woman up doesn't make any sense. That tells you something about the culture that we live in that is not being dealt with. It doesn't mean that it needs to be dealt with. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It could be positive, it could be negative. I'm saying all this to set the groundwork for a method that I use in critiquing concepts within language and culture that people just take for granted. The method has a high degree of mimetic success in the sense that it's very hard to ignore. And once you've kind of put your thoughts out there and you've framed the questions correctly, it's very difficult for people to refrain from touching them. The main component at play here is that in order to define what anything is, we have to establish what it isn't first. Definition comes through disparity, context through contrast. We do it automatically. We as in people who read, write, and can think with words. It's instinctive. We're very dualistic by nature, even across cultures. And it's intuitive to assess an era, culture, or language by doing a direct comparison with another era, another culture, another language, and doing a kind of spot the difference type game of just comparing and contrasting. What's not intuitive is that you can tell even more about a time, society, or a shared set of values or concepts by attempting to counterbalance a concept by what feels like its closest opposite. I think of this method as kind of like the linguistic equivalent of the ink blot test, but for how we arrange, balance, and value ideas. How we do or don't counterbalance something tells us something about our value system, and it cuts through the lies of the bullshit that people tell each other and themselves. You can trick people into giving away their true feelings about things that they often don't even want to admit to themselves, let alone risk revealing to anyone else. And it's very hard once you put the question out there, like I said, for people to not address it. The problem I want to deal with, like pretending that I can deal with anything or that I can be of any help, is that it's very clear that the language we use and the terms and group narratives we are shoehorned into using have been hijacked. Some of it is unintentional, but a lot of it is definitely intentional. If you can hijack language, you can change how people counterbalance concepts, which means you can shape the topography of people's thoughts. Language is the solvent of ideas. Culture is a shared set of ideas. You change the language, you change the culture. You prime people to make assumptions that makes people individually, and certainly as a herd en masse, fairly easy to exploit if you're in the right position. Neurolinguistic programming as a term is kind of appropriate, but as a concept that doesn't lead people far enough. On the right, what people frame as Hegelian dialectic, even if technically that's not correct, from a left-wing point of view, that is more apropos. An example of this from the perspective of someone on the right, Team Red, that lane of the slaughterhouse, is that the opposite of a progressive is a conservative. The world is bad and things need to change to make it better. Progressives are the people that want change that'll make things better. Conservatives want things to stay the same or go backwards. Therefore, progressives want things to go forward. that forwards as a direction has positive connotations and backwards, going backwards or staying put has negative connotations. Therefore, progressive as a concept has a positive moral charge, and conservative as a concept has a negative moral charge to people who don't think for themselves. The math behind that type of priming is done automatically in most cases. And certainly, if you're dealing with people who prefer to not think for themselves, then the framing guides them automatically into pre-dug ruts that make people predictable. Like I said, team red, team blue, different laneways, same slaughterhouse at the end. People focus on the differences between them, left and right, progressive, conservative, but that blinds people to the negative things that are sustained no matter which team wins or loses. And so people are unaware of those who always seem to win no matter what happens. They've hedged their bets. But I've dicked around for long enough. I'm going to jump into this theme of counterbalancing now with a series of very short videos that break down a concept we take for granted by challenging its presumed opposites. Thanks for watching or listening. I hope you feel I haven't wasted your time.